Good evening, everyone. I see the time is 7 p.m. on Monday, March 17th, 2025. I'll call this regular council meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge we're on the traditional territory of the Stahelis. Are there any late items to introduce to our agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'll move to the third item on our agenda, which is approval of the agenda.
Who moved, Mayor Talon?
Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Adoption of council minutes. Item 4, that the regular council meeting minutes of March 3rd, 2025 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any discussion to that? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Yes, unanimously. Which gets us to item 5 on our agenda, business arising from the minutes. Is there any business arising from the minutes this evening? Seeing none, I'll move to the consent agenda. Could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Move, Mayor Talon.
Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Vital. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Delegations and petitions. Are there any delegations or petitions this evening? There are none, which takes us to item 8, correspondence. Could I have a motion to receive the correspondence items A to J as received? Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none, I will call the vote on that. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Business arising from correspondence is item 9 on the agenda, and I'm predicting there is a fair bit of business arising from correspondence. Councillor Vital, start us off.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. I would like to bring Council's attention to correspondence C from the City of Abbotsford requesting support for their resolution to Lower Mainland LGA. I will put forward a motion then that Council send a letter of support to the City of Abbotsford for their resolution. And I believe, Councillor Faccio, you were going to second it?
Second that.
Thank you.
Mayor Talon, thank you.
Councillor Vital moves to send a letter of support pursuant to item C, seconded by Councillor Faccio. Discussion to that motion. So I think it's a good idea. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of that motion, and we will send a letter of support as suggested.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. And item D, the letter from MLA Tony Luck on input on municipal and local government issues and community recognitions for question period. I'm going to put forward a motion, Mayor Talon, that rather than sending an itemized list to MLA Tony Luck, that we extend an invitation to MLA Luck to attend in person with council and staff. I did check the parliamentary calendar, and I believe that they are not sitting within the next 2 weeks, and then I believe they sit for another month. I just have always found it much more beneficial to arrange a one-on-one meeting with our MLA. So with that, I'll put the motion forward then to have our staff extend an invitation for a face-to-face meeting with MLA Tony Luck, with council and with staff at the MLA's earliest convenience.
So move, Mayor Talon. Pardon.
Move that we extend an invitation to our MLA, Tony Luck, to meet with us, seconded by Councillor Faccio. Discussion of that motion. I think that's a good use of time as well. I'll call the vote. All in favor? And we will send an invitation.
And one more item, Mayor Talon, if you'll indulge me. Number F, the response to questions from BC Timber Sales. I'm not fully convinced that we have gotten the full explanation from BC Timber Sales. So I'm going to put forward a motion at this time that a letter be sent to the Minister of Forests in Victoria expressing our concerns on the potential logging that is taking place, specifically with how it will interfere with our scenescapes from the lake. So I'll put that motion forward. If someone is willing to second it, then I will have some more discussion on it. Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. I think a letter to the minister at this time is the appropriate thing to do, and to perhaps also include in the letter that we would be looking forward to meeting with the minister at a future date. And the reason I'm also saying, you know, a letter to the minister, it puts the ministry on a little bit of a notice as to what our concerns are. We may need to wait until UBCM in order to request that meeting with the minister, but I think it'll be beneficial to at least start the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. I was really disappointed, a little bit unsurprised, but very disappointed in their response. Areas of interest for logging include Echo Island and much of what we see from the beach. And to have an individual, I think in Chilliwack, be responsible for determining whether the viewscapes of the village are adversely affected is just not acceptable. There's no role input for the village in any of these things. That's unacceptable. The non-answers on the number of trucks and other types of things, again, just pointing to provincial legislation and no role for any input from the village of Harrison Hot Springs is just unacceptable. I recall that the BC Timber Sales wrote the village in the fall. The only reason we're doing this is because they asked us for our views on it. I think they may be disappointed that we actually dug into this and had an opinion. Now that we have an opinion, they really can't answer our questions in a meaningful way. So I do agree that escalating this at this time to the minister would be appropriate, I believe. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Swinbanks.
Thank you, Mayor Talon, and thank you, Councillor Vital, for bringing this up. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. I was disappointed with the letters and with our correspondence in general with BCTS. However, there's a couple of nuggets there we might be able to use. She mentioned a couple of names. One is a fellow named Mike Peters. He is the manager for the Chilliwack Forestry District, which is a very wide area, and perhaps we need to start corresponding with him as well. I'd like to encourage staff to do that. And also she mentioned a lady, I think Miss Baird, and she is the Fire Smart officer for the BCTS organization. And it may be worthwhile corresponding with her. I think her services has been offered up to us before, and maybe we can engage more directly with this Miss Baird as well. That's my 2 cents worth.
If we write the minister and the minister directs us to engage with those people, be happy to, but I think right now the non-answers from BC Timber Sales just haven't been helpful at all. And simply pointing that everything is done pursuant to provincial legislation and regulations doesn't really answer in any way what role the village has in these things. So if they asked us for our opinion, clearly everything they've said is they don't need to listen to us, and that's not acceptable.
Yeah, well, there you go. Online. I fully agree with the motion. I think it's important, though, that we get direct communication with the minister first. I think that's the first important step before we start jumping on the other people who really answer to the minister. So whatever route our staff want to go on that, I'll leave that to him, but I don't disagree with Councillor Scheinberg's comments. But the ministry is the first step, and hopefully when we get the call to meet with the ministers at UBCM, we'll get our name in as soon as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Faccio. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. If my memory corrects me, back in 2005, the first meeting I went to in Harrison was here about this same issue, the logging in front of us. There was a huge turnout, like there always is for public meetings. They listened to us, but it was, I think his name was Crozier, was the manager at that time in Chilliwack, not the minister. He was the gentleman that actually got it changed. So I almost think the idea is to go right to the source, the decision maker. The ministers right now are going to have so many priorities, and we all know what we're up against. So I would recommend that we deal with whoever the gentleman is now, Mr. Peters, if that's the name, we deal with him. You make arrangements to go to see him with our CAO. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any further discussion to the motion? Councillor Swinburne.
Thank you. Yeah, I support what Councillor Jackson said. I think we could do a dual-pronged approach. I like the idea of a letter to the minister, but I think either staff or council can approach these individuals as well in Chilliwack.
Well, we certainly can copy them on our correspondence and if they want to reach out. But the answer we've got is just provincial legislation. And having had a career as a bureaucrat, you're going to follow the law. And whatever's in regulations, you're not going to step outside. So that was clear from all their answers to date. But we can copy them and hopefully they can engage with us and we can advocate for things that are important to the village. I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor of sending that letter? And that is carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. Nothing further at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Councillor Faccio.
Yeah, just the letter from the elementary school, page 31, regarding their problems with the dogs. Now, that is private property, as we know, but in the past, I do recall that our bylaw officer did have did do a patrol of that over the years and did issue tickets in regards to the dogs. The thing is, it's very well when the school is finished, but late at night, especially in the summer, between 7 and 8 o'clock at night, you get the folks who come out with the dogs there. That's the only big area for the dogs to run around, but it should be cleaned up. I mean, the signs have been there for years for cleaning that area. So all I'm saying is maybe some direction to our bylaw officer to keep an eye on that, and just let the school know that we are trying to address it and work with them to try and resolve the matter with the issue of the dogs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Faccio. Their solution that they wrote us was echoes what our bylaw officer also recommended, which was the village pursue an off-leash dog park to relieve some of the pressure. I don't think it'll solve it ultimately, but it'll give an outlet for dog owners that would like to run their dogs. CAO Cook.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I think we spoke about this a little bit earlier offline, but the unfortunate part is our dog or animal control is monitored through the FBRD, and our bylaw officer she can educate, but she certainly won't be able to fine. So we can bring it to her attention, but she won't be able to enforce the bylaw because it is meant to be enforced by the FERD. But again, we can certainly encourage the school to contact the FERD if they have evidence or witness people with their dogs off leash on their property.
Thank you, CEO Cook. Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. May I suggest that perhaps we get this out to our residents with our, new communications person, that just to stress to residents that the school grounds are on private property and it's not the appropriate place to run your dog. That may help a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Councillor Schweinmans.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. I agree with the other comments. I think we need to play nice on this. It's not our property. One day they might build a fence around the whole thing and then nobody can use it to play soccer or baseball or to run their dogs. So I think we should write a letter back and redouble our education efforts. I don't know if there's a bag depot there for dog litter. Is there one? Okay, that's good. But we got to play nice with them. That's not our property. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schweinmans. Any other comments on the correspondence we've received? Councillor Schweinmans.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. There's a lot of really good quality letters today, and I appreciate people writing these in. It's really, really helpful. I'm going to start at the back end, and that is from Dr. Corkle with regards to the risk assessment probabilities regarding floods. And we had a great meeting in here 2 weeks ago. There was so many people in here giving some great ideas, and but I think there's a cloud of uncertainty, maybe even disinformation about this. So I think Dr. Corkle had some great ideas, and I know I talked to CAO today about this issue of people thinking that, or people arguing that maybe dealing with the Miami River flood control is a better use of our time and energy and money. And I'm just wondering if maybe CAO, you could fill us in on what we can do to mitigate this, because I think it's a real thing. We're dealing with the dike project that is going to address a 1 in 2 or 3 or 400 year event, whereas the atmospheric river that we saw in 2021 is likely to happen more often now, every decade or every couple of decades. So I'm wondering, Mr. Mayor, if we have a strategy around trying to improve the emptying of Miami River when these events happen.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Schweinmans. I noted the correspondence, several pieces of correspondence concerning the dike project and sort of follow-up, I think, from the community open house. I too was very pleased at the level of engagement by many members of the public on this matter. The material that was at the open house was in the council chambers in the village office for the last 2 weeks. Has been taken down now. I understand a few more comments have come in. I think it's probably incumbent on us as a village to assemble all these comments and points and somehow respond to them collectively and have a place where people can see how their comments have been responded to or considered or those kind of things. And that no doubt will help us inform our decision going forward on this matter as well. Councillor Pacho.
Just following up, Your Worship, I'm assuming at some point when all the information has been gathered that we'll probably have another committee of the whole to discuss the project further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pacho. Yeah, I can see many meetings. Committee of the whole meeting may be useful, but we may have another public engagement session, public open house too, with all this as we move forward. Councillor Schweinmans.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. I was waxing poetic, and I did have a question there, and perhaps CAO Cook could reply. I wasn't aware that the same consulting company that is looking at our dike situation was involved in the design of the Miami River project back in 2016. Perhaps through you, Mr. Mayor, if we could have an explanation of perhaps next steps, maybe we could get some consultation on that project and see if that we're making sure it's working as planned.
I took the liberty this weekend while it was raining to do more reading about dikes and pumps and Archimedes pumps than I ever thought I would. And all that stuff's online. I found a very fascinating report about that and how it replaced the existing system, how it's fish friendly, and was kind of amazed to know that that those two Archimedes pumps can move 3 cubic meters of water a second continuously, 24 hours 7, which is a fairly large volume of water, and I think it's probably 20 or 30% more than the pumps it replaced. But CEO Cook, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. Councillor Schweinbens is correct that NHC was involved in part of the project, not necessarily the whole project, but they did do some analyses. So one thing I do want to advise that our operations staff are always looking for efficiencies in our equipment. And when we see there are, like, I mean, when this was designed, and I believe it was installed in 2012, so we've come, you know, quite a ways with respect to climate change and understanding what that impact is. I was around for the 2021 flood, and we got, you know, over half a meter of rain in 36 hours. So no system is designed to be able to accommodate that. But I can tell you that the pump and the floodgates worked optimally, and there was minimal flooding along the river. You know, I mean, obviously, I feel bad for the people that were impacted, and they were certainly much lower than what our floodplain regulations are, and not to say that that wasn't an impact to them, but certainly they're built below existing standards. And what I did speak with Councillor Schweinbens about was the efficiencies about getting water to the inlet. Now, there's challenges with debris being in, of course, you know, when we're in the middle of a weather event, there's going to be water coming into the river at high rates, and it's going to bring debris in with it. And so right now, staff is looking at options to perhaps install an extra log boom, or exploring efficiencies on how to remove debris from the trash rack. So that's where we're at, but the system is designed and functioning the way it was designed. If we're talking about a flood coming from the District of Kent, then obviously that's a different matter. But if you're talking about the catchment area that it was designed for, it is functioning fully. And if there was any challenges, and like I said, our operations staff do a very good job on maintaining and monitoring our equipment. And if there was any concerns, it would be addressed accordingly. There's, you know, like I said, there's ongoing assessments with all of our equipment and making sure that it's efficiently operating.
Thank you, CEO Cook. Councillor Schweinbens.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. I wasn't quite done with correspondence. So like I said, there's a lot of good letters today. Wanted to talk about the letter from the letter about the hard drugs and sexualization of kids. Anecdotally, I've heard that within our village in Harrison Hot Springs over the last couple of years, 3 people in their mid-20s have passed away because of hard drugs in our small village here. And I'm just wondering if council would support writing a letter to the superintendent of our local school district and to the appropriate minister to make sure that this issue is highlighted. I understand that there's some legislation in here that is not being pursued, is not being enforced. And I think that education goes a long way to make sure that there's no more exploitation, either through drugs or the sexualization of people. And I would like to move that we as a council, as a village, write a letter to the superintendent of the local school board, and as well as to the appropriate minister in support of the program that she speaks of.
Thank you, Councillor Swinebands. There's a motion to, from Councillor Swinebands to write the superintendent to encourage schools to continue their education of children to avoid the hard drugs. Is that seconded by you, Councillor Fascio? Seconded by Councillor Fascio. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. Just reading through that specific letter that Councillor Schweinbatz referred to, I spent some considerable time on the weekend researching some of the claims that were made in this letter, and one specifically relating to prostitution. The letter writer states that prostitution is illegal in Canada, and that is not correct. The selling of sexual favors is legal in Canada. What that means is that a person can legally offer sexual services. However, the buying of sex is illegal. It is a crime to purchase sexual services. This means that sex workers are not criminalized, but the buyers are. So while prostitution itself isn't banned, laws do make it difficult to engage in it legally. And I don't recall when that legislation was passed, but it was meant to not focus on the sex workers themselves, but to focus on the clients. So I'm in favor of the motion, but just wanted to point out to council that there appears to be some inaccuracies in the letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. I think the motion is specific, if I understood Councillor Swinebands correctly, to focus on education on hard drugs and presumably opiates. Is that correct?
Yes, with the addition of the sexploitation of young people. I think they're interconnected, Mayor Talon, with respect. I think and I agree with what you're saying. I think education based on not only the hard drugs, but also teaching young men about the pitfalls of prostitution and respect for women, and making sure that that they're educated to go down the right path. They're focusing on young men as well during this education.
Any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Any further? Councillor Swinebands,
Sorry.
I see your light on.
Also wanted to shout out to, there was 3 individuals that wrote letters in support of the Bear Smart program. I think we're going to be talking about it later, but I just wanted to say that the quality of the writing and the quality of the debate is just outstanding, and I think this issue has struck a nerve in the community. There was dozens of people online that were talking about this in favor of Bear Smart. A lot of people have contacted me as well. I know we're going to be talking about it, but I think it's a sign that this village is ready to rip the Band-Aid off and to fully embrace Bear Smart, and I look forward to our discussion a little bit later. Thank you.
No further discussion on the correspondence, then move to item 10 in our agenda, which is reports of councillors, committees, committee of the whole, and commissions. We start with reports from councillors. Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. March 5th, I attended a Citizens Advisory Committee meeting at Mountain Institution. On March 8th, I attended our fire department's open house here at Memorial Hall. Some good ideas on some potential future training opportunities for our fire department. On March 10th, I attended a very preliminary meeting with Mountain Institution Senior Management, some Kent senior staff, and our CAO Tyson, and our operations manager. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the institution's work release program, and how both communities could perhaps provide a level of support for the program. There will be future discussions regarding it, but a very positive and good preliminary meeting. March 12th to 16th, I attended the Local Government Leadership Academy Forum in Richmond, and some very, very good panel discussions and speakers. Some of the topics included how to manage relationships with a new provincial government and how to communicate openly across these political shifts. Building trust around the table, how you can enhance your relationships with council members and your staff. Again, a little bit more into the roles of staff and roles of elected officials. One particular session that I found quite enlightening was called Empowering Your CAO and Key Strategies for Effective Leadership in Local Government. Effective community engagement, quite an in-depth discussion on the use of social media and what else can be done to enhance public engagement. A panel on engaging with First Nations, and also the importance of community engagement when local governments are needing to revise their OCP, which is something that we will be looking at doing later in this year, I believe. Another good panel discussion on consultation and cooperation under emergency management. And I found a very enlightening last panel discussion called Beyond the Term, where some former local leaders explained and provided some insight on not only their terms in office, but an update on what they were engaged in after leaving local government. I think a very, very worthwhile 2.5 days, not only for the panel discussions, but I also find it wonderful to be able to network with other local government officials and discuss best practices. So a lot can be said from learning from other local governments. So thank you, Mayor Tallon.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Councillor Fascio.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the Regional and Corporate Service Committee meeting at Regional Districts on Thursday, there was a resolution brought forward by one of our electoral areas that the Fraser Valley Regional District Board directs staff to support Canadian business in a Buy Canadian strategy, purchasing goods and services that are based in Canada. That will go through to the full board at the end of the month. We received unanimous support there for that going forward. And also in regards to the board and committee procedure bylaw, something that we're going to be discussing or passing this evening, but recent discussions have again arisen by board members regarding scheduling of board meetings during the daytime hours. So at the moment, they're looking between 9 o'clock in the morning to 4 p.m. and 10 in the morning was the 10 or 1 p.m. was the chosen time. This, of course, will go to the full board, but that was consensus that scheduling the board meeting start times during daytime hours will provide the following benefits: elimination of overtime costs. And this is the most important one, I think, that sometimes, and we have to remember as councillors, we are the employers of our staff as well. Reduce cognitive fatigue and improve decision making from the staff perspective as well. And I think it's come, I'm not going to mention names, but it has come from this council, from an old council, or I'm not going to say the mayor, but you know, when you get to a certain time in the evening, the brain isn't moving as well as it did at 10 o'clock in the morning. So here's a good decision. They're probably going to be going, by the sound of it, either at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. for their regular board meetings. They already have this executive meeting at 10 o'clock as it is. And also, now that Zoom is in place, that's one of the big reasons as well, that people can now watch this on Zoom or watch the recordings at a later stage. And this is what I was trying to explain to a very nice resident I've known for many years at the last open house, but unfortunately, she took it, unfortunately, the wrong way, that I was trying to explain the reasons why we're looking at changing to the time that we're going to be looking at later in the agenda. But there's some reasons from the regional district. And just to finish off, but I will bring this up at the Bear Smart, but I was in Hope this week, and on there, and this is on the streets, in the main street, not on the beach like we have. They have coexisting with wildlife. The Hope Mountain Black Bear Committee is working to keep wildlife safe and humans safe. Education, we canvass door to door to prevent and address concerns related to wildlife. We make formal presentations using locally developed education materials. We attend public events. We present to a variety of groups and leave no trace. We provide a message to travelers in the Hope area and to reduce bear attractions to nature. We hand out bear-aware brochures and garbage bags. This is a program that is carried out in Hope. I took the photograph and had it printed. I thought that might be of some use to the councillors when they're discussing this. Thank you very much. That's the end of my report, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Pacho. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I attended the Communities in Bloom meeting on the 6th, which is our community living in harmony with our environment. Unfortunately, our committee appears to be losing people, and it's a great committee, but we need additional people. So if we want this committee to continue on through the year, we're doing all we can, so we're looking for volunteers. Thank you, Your Worship. And I attended the RMI meeting in 2025, and as you know, we're making big plans for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Swinebans.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. In the interest of time, I'll let Councillor Vidal's comments stand for the Leadership Academy that we were at for 3 days last week. But on the 8th, I attended here the fire department evening. They had surveys, they had displays, they had lectures, and I've said it a few times, I'm going to say it a lot. This village is so lucky to have 24 dedicated, enthusiastic fire people, firemen and women, serving our community day and night. And I really appreciated them doing that evening, and I appreciate all their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swinebans. Committees, Committee of the Whole, Corporate Officer, are the reports? I'll let you lead us through that. Thanks.
Thank you. First report there is on page 55 of your agenda. There's a report from the Environmental Committee, who has met a few times over the past couple of months to discuss the urban forest management plan. So there's a recommendation there. They're looking for council approval, that council directs staff to investigate grant funding opportunities to support the increase of the urban tree canopy on both public and private properties.
Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Swinebans. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Next item, Corporate Officer.
The next item is on page 57, and Councillor Jackson spoke to this a little bit during his report. Communities in Bloom recently met, and they're looking for council approval of the following recommendation, that council directs staff to put out a call for more Communities in Bloom committee members.
Move recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Swinebans. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that carries unanimously. That takes us to our next agenda item. That completes the reports from Mayor. On March 6th, I attended an RCC Mayor's meeting, and if I have it correct, that acronym stands for Resort Community Consensus, or maybe it's collaborative. It's never really made sense to me, and I've heard it described both ways. It was a meeting of mayors just keeping up to date on for resort communities in the province. It was informative. Most of the mayors in those communities are working on their resource development strategies, and we're happy that the province has announced that there will be RMI funding for the next several years. March 11th, I attended a local government mayors roundtable on tariffs. A bit of an update from the Premier and a couple of ministers. And a lot of questions from a lot of mayors. I think there was close to 120 people on the call. Lots of questions dealing with procurement. A lot of mayors asking for, and the province had offered, will offer some guidance on procurement, specifically how small communities can line up, or even the big ones can line up on procurement to, buy Canadian or buy trading partners that we have good relationships with. And lots of questions, particularly from some of the larger municipalities with big infrastructure projects about costs, that if there are no alternatives, what to do. Apparently, a lot of firefighting equipment comes from the States. Things have been ordered and purchased. Very concerned about cost increases for fire equipment, which is already quite expensive for a lot of places, including Harrison. But slap on a 25 or a 50% tariff on much of that. A lot of questions about that. And not a lot of answers, but a lot of questions, a lot of concerns raised by municipalities about how they're going to bear these costs, and look for some guidance from the province. So we'll keep our ears open as that goes on, and hopefully there will be calmer roads ahead where these on-again, off-again tariffs can settle down and we can normalize our trade relationships with the United States. I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting on March 11th as well, which was very good. Chamber member Richard Fife was there, and also very keen and eager for the Resort Development Committee strategy. He's the Chamber of Commerce appointee on that, and that was really good to see the Chamber pretty excited about those opportunities, and as well Richard, their representative, pretty keen and geared up for that. And March 12th to 14th, I also attended the Local Government Leadership Academy in Richmond with Councillors Vital and Schweinbenz. I found it overall a good experience. I appreciate some of the contacts I made. In particular, I spoke with a councillor from Golden, and Golden is just finishing a dike project of their own along the Kicking Horse River, and got to share some stories and pick that councillor's brains over how they proceeded to build community support and the types of challenges they faced for that. I also learned from that, from the counselor from Golden, that may have to talk to the mayor from Princeton or council from Princeton. In the atmospheric rivers, the flooding that occurred there, approximately 30% of the houses in Princeton were damaged or destroyed. It's my understanding, reading recent press releases, that those haven't been rebuilt yet. They're wrestling with lack of insurance costs, where to rebuild. The houses that were destroyed were in a very low area in the floodplain on I guess, swampy land generally. And I only mention that because I heard at the open house, and I've seen on social media statements, well, the flood risk, you know, maybe once every 100 years or every 200 years, we just rebuild the village. It's a good thing. I think if you talk to the people in Princeton that have been without their homes for 3 years, I'm not sure that's an easy statement to make. And there's some lessons learned about councils taking the proper actions to protect the village. They are staring at looking at diking in Princeton, which they haven't started yet. They're still trying to figure it out, up to 4 meters high in certain places because of the flood risk there. So if I read the news report correctly, it may be worthwhile picking the brains of our colleagues in Princeton to learn from their experience and how we might avail ourselves of their knowledge. And that's the report I have for the last couple of weeks, which takes us to item 12, corporate officer reports from staff.
Our first report is our report from our community services manager regarding resident pay parking pass.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. At the February 18th, 2025 regular council meeting, a resolution was passed that staff be directed to research options and present a recommendation to council for village residents to purchase a season's parking pass for pay parking. The village currently contracts its pay parking services to Precise ParkLink. This year is the final year in our current agreement. Staff had previously contacted Precise ParkLink to inquire about the possibility of a resident season parking pass. There would be fees associated with setting up this service, including a one-time fee of $250 for the village and a fee for each new pass holder of $25. These parking passes would be connected to license plate and therefore wouldn't be transferable or require any type of tag to be displayed. If the seasonal parking passes were only available for residents in the village to purchase, additional administrative steps would be required to confirm address and eligibility. Considerations may also need to be made about what residential addresses are permitted to purchase to eliminate it becoming a full-time parking spot for those residing in homes adjacent to the pay parking zones. There might need to be a restriction of hours per day and/or days of week that parking would be available to pass holders. Pay parking is in effect daily from May 15th to September 15th between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. in the designated zones. The first hour of parking is $2, with rates increasing after that time. There is abundance of free parking available on Lillooet Avenue east of Hot Springs Road, as well as 15-minute stalls available for those making quick stops from local businesses. And one just comparison here, the parking lots located at Main Beach at Cultus Lake have rates set at a minimum of $5.20 per hour with no daily rate available and an additional $2 infrastructure fee on each transaction. Staff recognize that there could be benefits to residents for the ease of visiting the beachfront if they had a resident pass. However, there would need to be a cost associated with this. As the village nears the end of its contract term, staff will be conducting a full review of the current pay parking system and plan to explore ways to improve in future seasons. During this process, staff will continue to consider the possibility of supporting a resident pay parking pass. However, do not believe that it would be feasible to implement in time for the 2025 pay parking season. The recommendation before council for discussion is that the Community Services Manager's Resident Pay Parking Pass report dated March 17th, 2025 be received for information.
Move recommendation for information, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Vital. Discussion on that. Councillor Swainbent.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. Yeah, I think it'd be worthwhile discussing this. I'm not sure if there'd be support for a season's pass. What I would envision is there's a certain zone in the village, let's say it's south of Miami River Drive as an example, where those folks could pay for a season's pass, which would give them access to the waterfront during the week only, perhaps during low tourism times during the week only. I'm just thinking about the businesses on the waterfront, and we might be entering into a tough season, a tough couple of seasons here, and to encourage residents to come and use the restaurants and chocolate shops and restaurant or coffee shops, I think it'd be very valuable. So it may be too late to do that this year, but I'd like to keep this conversation going. That, you know, I think we should be malleable on this and maybe offer up some seasons passes for a price for certain zones that they can come down here for a couple of hours and not have to worry about paying. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swinburne. Councillor Vital.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. And I've stated this previously, that I'm certainly not opposed to investigating a resident parking pass, but I think that we need to move cautiously. And one of my concerns for the village is any potential loss of revenue for the paid parking program, as that helps to offset the costs and pay for our seasonal staff to keep our beachfronts clean. I would very much look forward to a complete review of our whole paid parking program following this year's season. And I certainly, and I'm speaking with some residents, that I think we would need some reassurances on revenues and also ways to minimize any abuse of residents' passes. And I think if a thorough review is done and it's council's decision to move ahead with a residence parking pass of some sort, I would really encourage that we perhaps look at it as a pilot project for a year, and then gather the data at the end of a one-year pilot and review it before we moved ahead with anything permanent. So thank you, Mayor Tallon.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Councillor Pacho.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, this issue comes up normally at every all candidates meeting. It's something that could be tried on a trial basis, but not this year. We could probably, as staff have informed us here, look into it for next year in regards to that. But when we came into pay parking in 2016, one of the selling points was that Lillooet would be free parking. And then people find that very useful, whether it's a resident or a tourist. In the summer months, unless you get down to the beach before 8:30, you've got no chance of whether you've got a resident pass or not of getting a spot. They're taken right through the whole works here. And as somebody said, from Lillooet to, and I'll use a coffee shop without mentioning the names, it's 125 paces to walk. So I don't think that's a tremendous amount of walking to do. And as I've noticed for all the years I've lived here, that many people in Harrison do walk, and they walk, and they walk. And that's where they meet people or walk past or say hi or whatever the case may be. But again, I think there's something should be left till next year. But leave it to our staff to come up with maybe some solutions for 2026, and then we can discuss it in depth at that time. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Fascio. I appreciated the report, and knowing that this is the last year of the contract with the existing people that do the collections and enforcement of our paid parking. And knowing some of the boat launch things are changing this year, I think with the report acknowledging that staff is going to review all the pay parking at the conclusion of this pay parking season, I think that's appropriate at this time, and look forward to a report in November or December with some ideas that can be rolled out on a timely basis if council decides for the next pay parking season. Any further discussion on that motion to accept the report? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that carries unanimously. Next item, Corporate Officer.
Thank you. We're moving on to bylaws. We have a report from our Community Services Manager regarding miscellaneous fee amendment bylaw number 1224, 2025.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. This report presents proposed changes to miscellaneous fee bylaw number 1049, 2014. Proposed policy changes to policy number 4.7 and policy number 1.17 will be forthcoming after any changes are made to this bylaw regarding costs, services, and definitions. The Village of Harrison Hot Springs welcomes many events annually to the village and looks forward to continue to offering spaces for events and gatherings. Updating miscellaneous fee bylaw will provide clarity and additional options for both residents and visitors looking to host events in the village. This bylaw has not been updated in recent years, depending on which fee schedule between 2014 and 2020. In reviewing our current costs while making updates to Schedule D for special events in Memorial Hall, staff are proposing other amendments to be aligned with actual costs as of 2025. The first recommendation is that miscellaneous fee amendment bylaw number 1224, 2025 be given first reading.
First reading, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor Swinebands. Discussion to that motion. Oh, we don't discuss that. Not up first. I'll catch up. All in favor of that? That carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. The next recommendation is that miscellaneous fee amendment bylaw number 1224, 2025 be given second and third readings.
Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Schweinbands. Discussion on that? I would like actually to discuss that, and given the number of changes and maybe the lessons learned with going second and third readings on the solid waste bylaw, I'm wondering if it'd be prudent to amend the motion to just have second reading tonight and allow these fee changes to percolate through the village and see. There's lots of people that are interested in these things. See if we receive any comment or feedback, and then consider third reading, or consider that feedback at that time and go to third reading. So I would like to propose an amendment to the motion that we strike third reading tonight and we proceed with the motion on second reading only.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Schweinbands. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Schweinbands.
I think it's a good idea. I learned today from last week that changes to bylaws really are only done at second reading. So it's more difficult to do it at third and then at final approval. So I like the fact that during the evenings, maybe we stop at second, let us marinate on it, and then we'll do final approval on third and final on another evening.
Any further discussion on the amendment to the motion? Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not quite, are we not, also we can discuss a third reading as well, and even adopt on the same evening if we wish. Otherwise, we're extending this another 2 weeks. And if we're going to go to third reading at the next council meeting, not go with adoption, that's another month before it's adopted. Don't quite see personally, I don't see the reason for it, because we can discuss it third reading and adopt even on the same night as well. Thank you.
CAO Cook or Corporate Officer, would you be able to a little clarity on procedures for bylaw adoption and approval?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Fascio is correct. We cannot do third and final adoption in one evening. It would require, it states 24 hours clear, but it would practically come to the, so it would take 2 more meetings in order to get finally adopted.
Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Talon, through you to our CAO. So just for clarification, that any discussion and amendments to any motions can be done at both second and third reading. And I agree with Councillor Fascio that it would just further push adoption of any bylaw further down the line. So just for clarification, though, discussion and any amendments can be done at both second and third reading prior to adoption. Is that correct?
CAO Cook.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I may have told Councillor Swinebens incorrectly that you can do an amendment at third, but the adoption, sorry, the motion would be third reading as amended. So you can amend at third.
Thank you. Councillor Swinebens.
Mayor Talon, through you to CAO Cook, you probably spoke very clearly. I probably didn't understand it correctly, so thank you for clarifying that.
Am I right, CAO and corporate officer, that if we do second and third readings this evening, then if there are comments or feedback from the public that we haven't considered that we might want to incorporate, we would have to repeal third reading. So we'd have to go back if there's some feedback that requires our attention. Any further discussion on the motion to amend the motion just to have second reading? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? 2 in favor of amending and opposed. 3 opposed, so the motion fails. Back to the original motion of second and third reading. Any further discussion on that? I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Next item, corporate officer.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, I have a report regarding bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 1223, 2025. Thank you. Before council this evening is a draft bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw for your consideration. The proposed bylaw would see updates to the fee schedule for bylaw enforcement ticket fines. This came about as a result of recent bylaw adoptions and repeals, as well as some challenges that our bylaw enforcement officers face when trying to address particularly sewer and water regulation bylaw issues. Although this bylaw is creating a number of new fines, I just want to highlight that offenses under some of these bylaws are fairly uncommon. Bylaw officers focus primarily on public education, but having fines associated to offenses allows officers to enforce village bylaws, particularly in cases of repeated noncompliance. So the changes there are highlighted for you in the discussion section of the report. And on the bylaw, the additions are shown highlighted in yellow, with removals shown red and struck through. I'd just like to draw council's attention, if I could, to page 79 of the agenda package. And my apologies for the error. It was recently brought to my attention that the fine associated with the village's single-use plastic items bylaw cites an incorrect section of the bylaw, so that second column there should read 3.1. So my apologies for that. Therefore, if the bylaw is introduced and given first reading this evening, I would just ask that that amendment be incorporated into second reading. And so the first recommendation before council is that bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 1223, 2025 be introduced and given first reading.
Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Swinebens. All in favor? That carries unanimously.
Thank you. So the second recommendation there would be that bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 1223, 2025 be given second and third readings as amended by correcting the reference to section 2 to section 3.1 on page 9 of the bylaw under the single-use plastics items.
So moved, Your Worship.
Moved by Counselor Pacheco, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Next item, Corporate Officer, when you're ready.
Thank you. Item C, I have a report regarding the council procedure bylaw number 1216, 2025.
Proceed.
Thank you. Before council this evening is a final version of the council procedure bylaw. At the last regular council meeting, there was some discussion with staff requested to do some research on a couple particular topics. In the discussion section, you'll find there are some notes there regarding committees and commissions and about their meeting dates and times. Section 31D of the proposed bylaw requires committees and commissions to develop terms of reference that suit those committees, but they do need to come to council for approval. Additionally, there is a requirement to develop annual work plans and budgets as well at that time. So staff feel that that would be adequately addressed, the meeting times for committees and commissions, through their terms of reference. There was some discussion regarding delegation topics and what you can and cannot include. The community charter does not speak to delegations at meetings at all, and while the public has a legislated right to attend and observe council proceedings at open meetings, there is no legislative right for anyone to speak or be heard at council meetings. There are specific instances set out in the community charter and the LGA which require council to hear from members of the public. Although council is not obligated to grant anyone the right to be heard at a council meeting, if council does so by allowing for delegations, then it has to ensure that the bylaw complies with freedom of expression under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And if council would like more information on that, there is case law available, but I would recommend obtaining a legal opinion. Moving on to reports from councillors. It appears that most other local governments do incorporate reports from councillors into their agendas. Sometimes it's a written report, sometimes it's verbal. I did make a note here. If council's looking to streamline meetings, they could choose to alter the practice of having staff read out the entire report and just move us to reading out the whole recommendation and then just answering any questions. So all that to say that there is a recommendation for that council procedure bylaw number 1216, 2025 be adopted.
Option, Your Worship.
Moved by Counselor Pacheco, seconded by Counselor Vital. Any discussion to that motion? Counselor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. Just through you to our corporate officer, I don't know if this question can be asked right now, and I'll certainly vote in favor of adoption. But regarding delegation, I know that there is almost an obligation for council to accept, or not necessarily accept, but when a delegation is approved, to listen to the delegation. However, I do believe there is case law that says no member of council is obligated to respond at that time to any questions from the delegation. Are you aware of that? Can you answer that? Thank you.
Corporate Officer.
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Vital. That's a great question. There is no obligation for any member of council to respond because that would ultimately infringe on your right to freedom of expression. So it goes both ways, but you're correct. There is case law on that.
Thank you, Corporate Officer.
Thank you, because and in past, we have always entertained delegations to appear, and if they do have a specific request from council, then in past practice has been just to thank the delegation, and then for council to discuss the request from a delegation at a further time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Any further discussion? Councillor Schweinpens.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. I'm in supportive of the changes that we've debated and considered for on a couple of occasions. One of the most contentious ones is the start time of our council meetings, which I'm in support of. And for those who are listening, I just wanted to remind everybody that when a new council is constituted in a couple of years and down the line, these can be changed. We're not going to be stuck on 5:30 start time. It can go back to 7 o'clock or whatever the council of the day is comprised of, maybe working people. I don't want to discourage people who are still working, who have busy lives, from joining council just because of the start time. That can be changed. Just wanted to clarify that.
I believe that's correct. Any bylaw can be amended by council when council decides to do that. Any further discussion on the motion? And I think it was Council Fascio. I think you're being kind to me. I was the one who was saying I get pretty tired after 9 o'clock in the evening, and anyhow, I look forward to starting council meetings at 5:30. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Next item, Corporate Officer.
Our next item is the 2025 to 2029 Financial Plan Bylaw. There's no report associated with this. However, the bylaw is included in the package. The recommendation is that Financial Plan Bylaw number 1220, 2025 be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Jackson.
Second, Your Worship.
Seconded by Councillor Fascio. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is adopted unanimously. Next item, Corporate Officer.
Thank you. Moving on to item E, Waste Collection and Disposal Amendment Bylaw. Again, no report associated with this one, and the recommendation is that Waste Collection and Disposal Amendment Bylaw number 1222, 2025 be adopted.
I would like to move at this time that we repeal third reading of this bylaw with the intent of making an amendment to the garbage collection pickup time when cans can be on the street. So I'm moving that we repeal third reading at this time. Seconded by Councillor Vital. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. I would like to motion now that 4D of the bylaw be amended to read, and this concerns collection days, on their waste collection day and as of September 1st, 2025, and not prior to 5 a.m. on the collection day, each resident requiring services shall, and then the rest of the clause continues with all the subparagraphs. Is there anyone who would second that? Seconded by Councillor Vital. I'm sure there's going to be discussion on this. Discussion to the motion. Councillor Schweinpens. Oh.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. Yeah, this came up in the fall. It was one of my first motions here at council, and I appreciated that I had a unanimous vote in favor of Bear Smart. So I was concerned a couple of weeks ago when we had the 10 o'clock time frame in this bylaw. You know, Bear Smart is it's a program of the Ministry of the Environment. It's a program of the BC Conservation Society, and it's a program endorsed by UBCM. There's 20 communities that are either have Bear Smart status or are working on it. Cities that have waste disposal pickup in the morning of the day of pickup. Sorry, they're not allowed, residents are allowed to put garbage out until that morning includes large cities like Nanaimo, Coquitlam, Kamloops, Lions Bay, Port Moody, Chilliwack on the hillsides, Port Alberni, Squamish, New Denver, and Naramata. Other villages like Balcarra and Whistler, they have a central compound where they bring their waste so that bears can't get into it. I feel that the community is not only ready for this, but they want this. I've been in contact with a lot of people who are in support of us having a bylaw that encourages people or enforces people to put their garbage out the morning of. Now, this is only one aspect of Bear Smart. I have the brochure here. There's 6 steps, and 4 of the steps speak to waste disposal and management of solid waste. We're going to focus on education and compliance. I know that a lot of people put their garbage out the night before currently, but this is the point. We are trying to steer behavior in a way that that minimizes wildlife contact in our village. We are a popular village with tourists. We have a very savvy population of people who like their wildlife and want to keep them safe. Thankfully, over the last couple of years, no bears have been destroyed in Harrison, although we do have a long history of it. And well over 600 bears a year are killed because of human conflict. And a pillar of this program is looking after our solid waste. And I would implore council, I would ask council to not start this 5 a.m. project in September, but to start it immediately. I was on the bridle trail today with my dog and I saw a cougar. Wildlife are waking up. By April 1st, the bears will be out of their dens likely, and they're going to be establishing routines. And if we signal to the community that it's okay to put it out at 10 o'clock the night before, then routines of the wildlife will be set. I think it's time we rip the Band-Aid off. Just get this done right now so that we don't confuse the community. Let's embrace Bear Smart and start the 5 a.m. project immediately. Thank you.
Councillor Fascio.
Thank you, Your Worship. I fully support the comments from Councillor Schweinbenz. First of all, I want to thank the residents who took the time to write to the council regarding this, their concerns about this bylaw and the phone calls I received. Many thanks. I don't know whether that should be inserted in, I mean, do we have to put this will start right? I'm all for starting this right away. I see no reason why we should have to wait till September, especially when the babies are already waking up and they'll be crossing Hot Springs Road from the Agassiz Mountain. Also, I think that I would like our staff to research the program that the FVRD used to have, Bear Smart program, where they would do a presentation, an open house. When they used to do it, used to be in the summer, or late spring at the plaza. And these are the folks I mentioned earlier on that used to go around the homes with the hangers about Bear Smart and what you should be responsible, what you should be looking for and be responsible. But fully support the program starting at the 5 a.m. In the mornings, and that it should be in force immediately, so that we can move ahead with this without coming back again to rediscuss it. But again, thanks for the folks who submitted or showed their concerns to those folks who committed, and let's move forward with this. Thank you.
Councillor Vital, comment.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. Through you to Councillor Schweinbenz, thank you. Thank you for that information. I am in favor of putting this in place immediately. However, I do want to also stress that through our website and our Facebook page, that it is clearly communicated to our residents. You'll always get those residents come back and say, "Oh, I didn't know," and that's fine. It's the process of education, and also to when our tax notices go out this year, that Bear Smart practices are included in it. And I also do want to comment that let's remember it's not only bears that cause the difficulty, raccoons especially. And so if we can encompass more of wildlife protection rather than strictly focusing just on bears. Thank you, Mayor Tallon.
Any further discussion of the motion?
Sorry. Mayor Tallon, do you
go
need
ahead.
an amendment to change your proposed time? So I'm moving to amend your motion to reflect the 5 a.m. start immediately. So I'll strike the September 1st.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Councillor Fascio. Discussion on that? I'll call the vote. All in favor? And I am opposed. I think the community needs more time to make the adjustment, and as drafted, it makes it midnight, and there's a lot of cans out on the street by 7 or 8 in the evening. This is a big adjustment. I think education is going to be key, and I really don't want to see the letters come in when 300 people are fined $100 for having the garbage cans out early. That goes to the motion now, the amended motion. All in favor of the amended motion? Sorry, I'll call the vote on the amended. Is there any further discussion on the amended motion, I should say? Councillor Swymans.
Mayor Tallon, yeah, the point is not for this to be a revenue generator. There's going to be an adjustment period when we're changing behavior. And I'm willing, maybe we should discuss for 60 days or 90 days, deferring fines and maybe just providing warnings to people. I mean, you guys have more experience in this kind of thing than I am. I'm not, we don't need to make this a revenue generator and fine people. It's about changing behavior and driving compliance through education.
Any further discussion on the amended motion?
We should,
Councillor Fascio?
Your Worship, I believe we should conduct this as we do with our minor enforcement and the fees, that normally they get a letter of warning, like everybody else does, whether it's an unsightly premises or whatever the case may be, that they get a letter of warning, and if that's not complied with, then unfortunately, we're either going to be strong with this or it's not, it's going to collapse. It's as simple as that. Let's stick with our procedure that our staff are adhering to for when they're dealing with complaints. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fascio. Any further discussion? We'll call the vote. All in favor of the amended motion, and that carries unanimously. Is new business? Are we at that stage? Oh, sorry. Thank you, F, Corporate Officer.
Pardon
I'm
me, Your
sorry.
Worship. What I might recommend is that council move for the third reading as amended, that they propose a motion, please.
Move that the waste collection, solid waste collection disposal amendment bylaw receive, we have third reading of that as amended tonight. Seconded by Councillor Fascio. Any discussion to that motion? We'll call the vote. All in favor, and that has third reading. Next item, Corporate Officer.
Thank you. Moving on to item F. Again, no report associated with this one. The recommendation is that Development Procedures Bylaw number 1214-2025 be adopted.
Move, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor Swymans. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that carries unanimously. Brings us to, now we're at new business, item 14 on our agenda. New business from from Councillor Fascio. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm bringing this forward because I've been twice in communication with Minister Osborne regarding the primary care centre that we're at the moment going through getting it renovated. My reason for speaking with her was if there was some way that that we are paying the annual lease fees for this facility, and I quoted $153,000. I think it was on our last meeting for the renovations, and I requested that that if there's some way that the ministry could help out with the cost of the renovations, and I suggested would you prefer this in the form of a letter from council, and she replied back to me, she said yes, that would be the appropriate way to do it, and she will deal with it herself, and then hopefully we'll get a reply. So my motion is to send a letter to the Minister Osborne, Minister of Health, regarding the cost of the renovations for our primary care centre, and if the ministry would look at allocating funding to pay for that or part of it. And I think this should also have as a separate item that when the primary care facility is completed, that we would ask for her to try and attend for the official opening. That's my motion. Thank you.
I'll second that motion to write a letter, see if we get some provincial financial support for that. Any discussion on that? Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Talon, I will support the motion, but would also like to see included in the letter to the minister perhaps some funding for the examination beds and other permanent equipment that will be required for the use for the nurse practitioner. Thank you.
Councillor Fascio.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councillor Vital's comments here, we did have quite a bit of conversation with Fraser Health last year, and they said they would look into that. So if I can suggest that we leave that with our staff to meet with Fraser Health to work on it's only the equipment for what we'll call the doctor's office or nurse practitioner that we're requiring. Other furniture we will have to supply ourselves for the other 3 offices and the reception. But I'll just maybe leave that to our staff to discuss with Fraser Health, and probably the sooner the better, because I think this is a project that could be completed sometime towards the end of May, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Talon, and through you to Councillor Fascio. I'll withdraw that amendment then, and I just want to say that my intent with it was that if we can get any funding for anything in that medical center, that I think we should pursue it. But Councillor Fascio feels that the best way would be to approach Fraser Health again, and I support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Yeah, I believe Fraser Health would be in a far better position than our staff to identify the equipment that's needed to outfit the clinic. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that passes unanimously. Which takes us to item 15 on our agenda, questions from the public pertaining to agenda items. Are there any questions from the public? Mr. Webster, please proceed.
Good evening. I wrote a letter about a concern about Alan Garneau's resignation. I want to clarify that I think what I kind of meant was there are people who have some maybe disabilities or maybe hearing loss. And I notice people have a hard time sitting in here and being able to hear you folks. Even with this nice speakers we have up here, I was just kind of suggesting maybe people would take, you can see the people who have hearing problems. Maybe a couple of monitors down here on the floor would kind of push the sound up towards them, and you wouldn't have them coming up and taking this and moving it down to the floor next to them so that they could hear you wonderful people. Those are the type of things I wish, just that, you know, you'd be a little bit more aware of and in tune with. And also, another thing I'd like to say is thank you for walking back on the Bear Smart. I love that. That's great. And if there's people who can't get up at 5 in the morning to put their garbage out, call me. Maybe I can give them a hand to do it. If not, I can find somebody, maybe their neighbor, to do it for them. Because there are people out there who just can't get up that early for health reasons. So I think there's people who can, that's what Block Watch is about, and your neighbor. So maybe we can do something with that. And also the Miami River, the flood, looking into this, along with the dike. I mean, I know the dike will definitely go ahead, but we also have to be aware of the, you know, the flooding that can happen from these torrential rains we're going to be subject to in the future. My take.
Thank you for your comments. Regarding the audio in the hall, it's my understanding headphones are available. So you can plug straight into the mic system, or you can use your own and can tie in a wireless way as well. So if there is anyone who has trouble hearing, those are also options available.
Well, that was one of Alan's comments, that they tried to hook up to his hearing aids, and they did work and they didn't work. And I mean, there's, you know, so I mean, we need to work through things like that. We're all getting up there in years, and our hearing's degrading, and I think sometimes we can all put a little bit more effort into helping those people.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any questions from anyone participating remotely tonight?
If there's anyone on Zoom would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Use the raise your hand function. There is nobody on.
No questions from anyone participating remotely, which takes us to 16, which is adjournment. Moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor Swinebans tonight. Discussion to that motion. All in favor, and we are adjourned. 8:32. My goodness.